Good morning, everyone. My name's Gordon Hargrove. I'm the city manager with the city of Bowling Spring Lakes. Today, I have the honor of entertaining Mayor Jeff Weinkauf and the finance director, Brandon Stevens. I hope you find today's city chat informative, and we certainly enjoy doing it, and I hope you find it as enjoyable as we do. So the first thing that I'd like to talk about, we've had several questions during public comment during our meetings concerning stuff to do with budgets and percentages of different fees and labor rates and stuff like that. One of the things that was questioned is why our labor rate runs so high in comparison to the private sector. I believe our budget salaries and stuff like that run about 66 to 67%. Brandon, I have tasked you with checking our municipal partners and comparing our city to other likewise communities. What have you found out? Are we in line with everybody else, or are we out of whack?
So yes, we are in line with our municipal partners. So I went to their budgets for the current year. And so Southport, for example, 67% of their annual budget is personnel costs. For Sunset Beach, it's 64%. And Town of Leland, it's 66%. BS, City of Bowling Spring Lakes is at 65 of the current year's budget regarding the personnel cost to the overall operating budget. And Oak Island is mainly the one that's at 53%, but they have a lot of different things and construction costs and things associated with that. And for those that were able to witness the auditor speaking yesterday, he said we were in line with the usual cost at 30% for public safety and 24% for streets and public works. That is in line with what the typical expenditures is with most municipalities. Of course, our fire department is separate from the city, but if it was to be added, that together with police is typically 50 to 60% of the expenditures.
Okay. So in other words, when we're comparing the public sector to the private sector and labor cost, we're not really comparing apples to apples. We're comparing apples to oranges. Private sector enterprise most of them have shareholders that they have to solve, and they're looking to pay dividends and increase revenues. That's not really how we as a city operate. As a city, we are a service provider. That's why the majority, you see the amount of money that goes toward labor rates, because we provide services. We're not here to generate a profit. Mayor, would you like to weigh in on that a little bit?
One thing is, my understanding is we have to compete with other cities, especially when it comes to our services, like our police officers. Right now, I believe we're down a few officers because it's so competitive. So to be able to compete with other cities, we have to make sure we check what the salaries are for these other cities and be able to compete with them.
So you're absolutely right. Over the last 5 or 6 years, there's been a movement to defund the police and just really I don't know that you would call it a lack of support for law enforcement, but one of the things we look at when we're looking at law enforcement is how do we stay competitive in the region, because we do have trouble attracting qualified applicants to work as our law enforcement officers. And really what hinders us is if we're not competitive with the market rate that other municipalities are willing to pay their law enforcement officers. So there is a reason we do salary studies. There is a reason that they make the pay that they make, because right now, we're a growing city. We need to have the enforcement on the streets. So that's one of the things that we look at, law enforcement and fire protection emergency services. That really consumes the majority of a municipality's budget all the time, every year.
And another thing, just not police officers, our public works, our code enforcement, there's always competition out there between the cities and the county to hire these people. So we have to stay on top of it, because when we have good people in place, we want to make sure we keep them.
That's an excellent point, excellent point. So Brandon, I'd like to touch real quick on another question that I received about how much debt is the city allowed to assume?
So by statute, the city is able to assume 34% as their debt margin. and that is with their operating cost and, you know, all the assets the city has. So 34% is the maximum, and you typically don't ever want to get near that number. But by North Carolina statute, 34% is the max you could go.
Just for informational purposes only, and what is that, what would that max be for the city of Bowling Spring Lakes?
So that maximum, as of the 24 fiscal year audit, it is $79 million. And of course, with the incursion of debt, we got the bus and some things. 79 would probably be the max. It was a little over that, but I'm adding in what's happened so far this year.
Okay. So when the dams projects are done, we're not really assuming any debt on that because most of that has been through funding by different sources like FEMA and the Defense Department, the state of North Carolina, and Brunswick County have all offered funding on that. So how does that impact our debt ratio, or does it?
So that actually doesn't impact the debt ratio because we have full funding from other sources to where the city's not having to come up with any expense for that project. We were fortunate to get 2 separate fundings from the state totaling $22 million for that. The Brunswick County has offered $3 million, and we get to get reimbursed for $750,000 each fiscal year. And the Department of Defense is $14,900,000 for that. And then, of course, we have those in separate funding accounts and separate bank accounts getting interest to also help facilitate if there's any issues during the process to where the city's not coming out of pocket for that.
Okay. So Mayor, I want to talk just briefly about this. I know when you were coming into your last term that there was also a bond on the ballot that the citizens did vote and approve in case there were expenditures related to the dams project that the external sources, the external funding sources didn't allow for. Talk to me a little bit about that and let the citizens know where are we at with that?
Well, we wanted the bond just in case. We knew how the government pays back, and they always withhold that 25%. We wanted that bond to make sure we'd had enough money to be able to pay for it. But in this case, we haven't touched that bond.
That's right.
That bond's still out there. Our whole point of view is we don't want to touch it.
That's right. So
we want to make sure the funding we have is in place, which we got in place, and move forward that way.
okay, good. So and I knew the answer to that. So I wanted you to lob that softball to you. So right now, this dam project is being fully funded by external sources, and we haven't touched the bond issue. And so right now, there has been no tax dollars.
Absolutely, no tax dollars going towards that.
The residents' tax
Right,
dollars. Their
residents'
tax
tax
dollars coming from somewhere, but it's just not our community.
But while we're on that point, there's been some chatter out from Facebook, and you know how I feel about that, that the whole project of the dam is a money laundering scheme that we're getting kickbacks on. Let me state this. We have to go through so much red tape with the federal government that I actually have to go on the site of the Department of Defense and check off and sign off every time we have an audit, because we get audited by the federal government, and make sure we're doing the things we're supposed to be doing. And we have our internal audit that the auditors come in and look how we're handling, which we had last night. So there's no possible way, and I tell you right now, I'm not going to jail for nobody. And I don't think anybody on this staff's going to jail for anybody, because all this money has to be processed and signed off on, and we have to go through the whole federal government. If anybody's dealt with the federal government, they know all the red tape you have to go through.
That's right. So I think while you're talking about those audits, this is a perfect time to talk about the audit presentation that we had last night. And, while there were some issues with that audit, none of those issues are with the right safeguards and guardrails in place that can't be overcome. So I have full confidence in Brandon being our new finance director, to take care of that. We've already talked about it this morning about what my expectations are for the next audit for the next fiscal year. And I think you'll see a much improved audit. Although, you know, that's not to say that there wasn't some positive news coming out of last night's audit. And I would like you to address some of those things that were the positive news from last night's audit.
Well, some of the most positive, because everybody knew how our funds were, how we talked about, you know, the city spent a lot of money paying back $2 million when Florence hit. So that took $2 million out of our revenue. And one of the things we wanted to do was decrease our spending and try to improve our fund balance, which we did. The audit showed last night we did decrease spending, and our fund balance did rise a little bit. But we still have a long way to go for our fund balance to be able to make local government's threshold, because we do live on the coast, we do have storms that come through, and we have to be able to move forward after a storm. As everybody can see right now, we're still waiting on the roads to be approved by FEMA so we can start repairing these roads and repaving them. So it's a long process with the federal government, and we have to be able to move forward when we have a storm.
Brandon, would you like to weigh in?
Yes, and piggybacking off what Mayor Weinkauf has said, these funding sources does require reporting every quarter and are mostly reimbursed based. With the bonds, the city did go out and procure that acceptance, but has not done anything with it. And that was prior to getting another $8 million from the state. So the city is working with not having to touch that, but having it in place just in case. Now for auditing for these projects, because we hit a certain threshold, near $1 million, we had to do single audits on these projects because they are federally funded. So aside from our own internal audit from just the city operating side of things, we have to have individual single audits to go through the financials of those projects to make sure we're in compliance. And yes, the city did do well in increasing their fund balance. There is no statute on a minimum fund balance unless there's a fund balance policy the city adopts, but they do like to see towns that are coastal or, you know, near the coast have a larger fund balance, around 30–40%, just in case a storm happened and you have about 6 months of operating revenue to help with the cost of that. So the city is moving through that direction. I feel that as we get closer to this dam project's completion, we would get a better idea of how that's going to affect the fund balance for the city, because, you know, FEMA is reimbursement based. So if we still can't get 25% of that funding until the project's completed. So as we wait on that, and depending on how all the costs, you know, as material costs and labor costs increase over the years, we could see that funds come back to our fund balance from FEMA, because it is supposed to go to the municipality. We just have it in the project for the dam right now. So if there's any overage, of course, that can come back to the city.
Okay, very good. So another question that we get on a regular basis is, why is it taking so long to build these dams? And first of all, when Hurricane Florence occurred in 2018, we didn't start building these dams until what?
I think it was
July of 21.
21, I think it was. Yes.
We didn't start building those dams in 21.
I think
I hadn't been here. The process has been going on since after Florence, putting all the funding mechanisms in place, the construction mechanisms in place. But we've only been actively under construction.
I think
since
22.
22, 23.
Yes.
Yes, so,
Yes.
you know, one of the things that we look at or have to deal with when we're building these dams is that there's certain requirements. It's not like the old days when you could just push up a mound of dirt and have a dam. Now there's all sorts of requirements by federal standards, by FEMA standards, North Carolina Dam standards. And so it's not just a matter of pushing up a mound of dirt. There are regulations that have to, and permits and engineering that has to be done, because one of the things we had to do for this particular Sanford Dam site is, believe it or not, it's in an earthquake zone. So that when you're in an earthquake zone, that requires a higher level of structural strength. And that's one of the things that we're working through right now to make it, I won't say it's earthquake proof, but it can withstand one. So it's not like we're just dragging our feet doing this project. There's nobody wants to complete this project any more so than the board, this staff. It's a lot of internal work for us. We're glad we have the opportunity to do it, but we're making great progress. I think our contractor Sequoia is doing a wonderful job. Our consulting engineers, McGill and Associates, are doing a wonderful job. We're all pushing this thing forward. So we really anticipate Sanford Dam making a lot of good progress over the next 12 months or so. Hopefully we'll, avoid some of these storms that have been coming in. And so, would you like to weigh in on that a
Well,
little bit?
and some of the other things that we have to do with these dams too is they had to do soil samples. And they had to get down to the hard rock. And plus they have to test the concrete to make sure the strength of the concrete will hold up. And they've had several instances where they've tested it and they've had to redo it.
That's correct.
So that's part of the work they had to do to make sure they're following the regulations out there for these dams. So it's a lot that goes into it for them to be able to maintain it and move forward the next section. So they're following all the rules that are now in place to make sure these are safe when they're finished.
That's right, because we don't want to come back and be redoing these dams in 10 years. This has been a inconvenience for the community. I know everybody's frustrated with the detour roads. We are as well. And so, we look forward to the completion of these dams. And Mayor Weinkauf, can you tell me what you've done to try to, the traffic on these detour roads have obviously damaged them. We're aware of that. What are some of the things that you and the board have undertaken to remedy that situation?
Well, there's a lot of things. We're having the staff to go out there because we know some of the sharp curves out there and turning radiuses and the big trucks going on the roads. We've tried to make sure anything that has to do with the dams are using the back roads to come in so they're not going through the detour. But we're looking at beyond this. After we get the roads open back up, what we can do to improve those roads. So we're working on several things trying to get the roads improved.
Would you like to expand on some of those asks?
Well, we've asked the state for a little bit of funding through Representative Miller. We don't know if we'll get that, but we did ask. And that's what we do every year. If there's something we need, we talk to Representative Miller to see if we can get funding for it. So we went to that point. I won't go any further into that because, with everything going on in Western North Carolina right now, trying to rebuild all that, funds are going to be tight this year at the state.
Would you mind speaking real quickly, and if you don't want to, that's okay, about the support that our representatives in Raleigh have given our community?
Well,
and I don't want to be too political about this because I'm not running for election.
This is very important. Since we came into office here, the board has been to every event that they offer for the state and town dinners to meet with our representatives. We've met with Representative Miller. We've talked to Senator Rayburn, Representative Eiler. And, we've had several needs, and every time we've asked them, they have stepped up to the plate to help us. Because, we found it's a working partnership between us and the state. And they really do an outstanding job of supporting us and Brunswick County. And you couldn't ask for anything better from our representatives because they do an incredible job supporting us.
Okay, very good. Thank you. So one of the things I want to talk about in City Chat is the opportunity for the residents of the community, if you have questions, to be put them in our suggestion box outside or our question box outside. It's been out there approximately, I would say, 3 weeks now, and we've got zero questions posed to us. This is the time that we'd like to take the opportunity to answer those questions. So as long as, it's respectful and pertinent to city business or how we do things, I strongly encourage you to come in and put those questions in that box, because right now, we have plenty of time to answer those questions, and nobody seems to be putting questions in there for us. And, which I find a little ironic, since we seem to have a lot of questions during our board meetings and during our citizens forums. And I know I get questions all the time, emails, and I'd like to be able to do our best to answer these questions, so that the public can see that what we're trying to do here.
Yeah, and something else, Gordon, too, because we had a discussion last night about it. Reach out to us. Our phone numbers are listed. We have emails, and all the board talked about that last night. But we've had 2 residents reach out to me before. I got with Gordon. We had the discussion about stiffening some of our penalties because of people who abuse them. And last night, we went through that process to stiffen these penalties. Because, one thing is, if somebody's gonna keep abusing what we have in place, then it's time to stiff them and make them understand it's not what we want. They need to improve their way they do things. And I've had a couple of other people who have reached out this week. I've reached back out to them and talked to them, and we're working on trying to see what they need, what we can do to help them. And it's a process, and that's why we're here. We're here to work with all the residents that they have a problem, to be able to move forward and see what we can do to help them out. So we're not ignoring anybody. Our doors are open. They've always been open. And we try to answer all the emails we can answer and try to return phone calls when they come in.
So, kind of circling back around to one of the things that you and the board had tasked our team here at City Hall to do. We're having a lot of noise complaints. We're having a lot of nuisance complaints that are just habitual offenders. And you've heard me speak about this before in a board meeting, that really when you have a civil penalty, it's not really worth the weight that it's written on. People crumple it up and throw it away because there's really no compelling reason to pay that fine. So one of the things that the board tasked City Hall with doing was creating misdemeanors of these habitual offenders. And that's what we did last night. So, a misdemeanor offense, and of course it would have to be, just because we write that citation doesn't mean that the ADA, Assistant District Attorney, is going to pursue it. But at least we have a mechanism in place that we can control what we can control. And so I think that'll be a good start to solving these chronic violators. So that we passed that last night, and I applaud the board for doing so. I want to talk just a moment about, we're in the middle of budget season, obviously. Tomorrow, department heads and myself will be presenting our preliminary budget to the Board of Commissioners. We did have a goals training session a few months ago, and the message that the staff received was what is our focus going to be on over the next few years. And well, actually it's got to be for that. We have to be able to have the ability to look out over the horizon, and I think this is a great start. But we had talked about stormwater issues and infrastructure issues. Would you like to expand on that just a moment?
Well, there's been discussion, and we've seen with these heavy rains, 22 inches of rain, flooding in the areas. And one of the big concerns is, if we have these big rain events, and it don't matter how much work we really do, it's never enough. And we've looked at, if we wanted to make the city perfect, it would cost hundreds of millions of dollars. And the city doesn't have that, nobody has that. So we need to have a plan in place where we're maintaining our ditches, our culverts and everything, and being able to control some of this stormwater, so when we have an event, it's just not as big as it could be. So that's some of the things we're looking at, how we need to move forward for this year and future, is to have that plan in place to constantly maintain what we have. And just one point that, you know, we've had this discussion too. The city and the Bowling Spring Lakes, it is just not what you see built. It's huge. If the city of Bowling Spring Lakes was built out, we would be one of the second largest cities in Brunswick County. And a lot of people don't realize that because we have a lot of woods and everything else that they don't really take in place as being part of the city, but it is. So there's a lot of work in this city that has to be done, and the staff we have is very, very minimal.
So, you know, one of the obstacles that really has faced not only Bowling Spring Lakes, but other municipalities and governments across the country has been since COVID. Construction cost, engineering cost has skyrocketed. You're probably on some projects if it was bid in 2019, you can see construction costs being 50 to 75% more. So, you know, obviously that is a funding issue for a community of our size. So one of the things that we're presenting to the board tomorrow, and I think everybody knows this, is that we are looking to start our very own stormwater department. We're also looking to add a civil engineer to our staff. And we think that this is important because money that we would be paying a contractor or paying a consulting engineer, we can now do in-house. And so we can undertake a lot of these projects with an in-house crew, which in turn will save the city money. Now, there's going to be some major projects that this crew will not be able to do. But that'll only be the biggest ones. They'll be in here doing some of the smaller projects that we can do as a community. And I think that has the ability to save the community a lot of money.
Oh, yes.
And I think that will be a huge step forward. But to your point, we could build a stormwater system that would accommodate 22 inches of rain, but nobody would be able to afford to live here. And hopefully, I don't know, I'm not a weatherman, I don't know. I hope we've seen the last of the 22-inch rain storms, but both you guys are long time, Brandon, you're a native to this area.
Yes.
And Jeff, you've lived here a long time, lived on Oak Island, live over here, so you know what the weather brings. We could get an afternoon storm that drops 6 inches of rain.
Oh, easy.
Those are the kind of events that we want to be prepared for.
Right.
And I think by having these crews on hand, as opposed to having a reactive approach, we're having a proactive approach, will help a whole lot. Will be a tremendous improvement for the city. One of the things that I'm currently working on right now is a ditch maintenance plan. That'll go hand in hand with our Sungate stormwater plan. We're working directly off that. It's one of the things that I want to be left as one of my legacies, is that now I know we're not going to improve stormwater immediately, but at least we can start that path to improving.
Yes.
So, Brandon,
Yes, so to go off of that, as I've been working with the dam project and the funding sources, I've also been asking about potential stormwater funding. And there's no concrete decision now, but working with Department of Environmental Quality, there might be some no-interest loans that the city can acquire to help with that process. And as you touched base just now and last night at the BOC meeting, the city is making strides to prevent any future incidents happening. I know personally on my road that people have been asked to clean out things that are blocking their culverts before this next hurricane season comes upon us. So that way that alleviates, the infrastructure and the system in place to where it's not as bad if something does happen.
Right. So, we're all very aware of the flooding issues here in our community. And not only are we being proactive, we're trying to be more proactive in a ditch maintenance plan and alleviating some of these flooding issues that that have happened throughout the city. It's not just one specific area. Everybody in this community has experienced flooding. Another thing that we're looking at is making adjustments to our UDO. We've been tasked by the board. I think this is a county-wide initiative that the mayor has been a part of, let's look at what our requirements are for building homes in our community, and are there procedures or techniques in place that we can put into our UDO that we might not be able to prevent the flooding, but with these techniques or standards in place, we would prevent the majority of damage to people's homes and whatnot. Would you like to weigh in on that?
Well, I mean, we have to look at the whole picture, because we know these events aren't gonna ease up anytime soon. They're getting more frequent. So we've got to have something in place, because most of these plats throughout the city have been since the '60s, where there was no restrictions in place back then. And the whole idea is, if you build a home, you don't want it to flood. I mean, that's a pretty awful thing. So we need to look at what we need to put in place to be able to move forward as the new homes are being built. That will sort of ease some of the pain if we have one of these events. So it's just being able to try to help our residents out the best way we can with the construction.
Okay, very good. So I've covered all the topics that I'd like to cover today. Since we don't have any questions in our question box, Brandon, would you like to close with anything?
Yeah, so from, not the BOC meeting from last night, but the one back in March, I know there was a comment regarding Parks and Rec revenues. And there has been refunds because trips were canceled because of storms or whatnot. If those refunds wouldn't have occurred in October, they would have been past their revenue budget. They're already past, and for adult programs, for youth programs, they're already past it by $1,000 so, and there's still time in the year. But they are keeping costs down in their expenditures, and the revenues part of it, they are meeting those, with the exception of those refunds happening because of things outside of their control.
So that's a very good point. I want, when we build this budget and we project the revenue for the year, we don't determine when that revenue comes in, because we have different like the Powell bill funding, the ABC store disbursements, the sales tax disbursements. While you may not see that in the budget yet, and it looks like that it hasn't come in and we're not making progress toward that, all of those appropriations, they come in at different times of the year. Some of them come in quarterly, some come in semi-annually, some come in annually. Some of them come in during that year at the very end of the fiscal year. So while it looks like we're not meeting those targets, by the time we reach the end of the fiscal year, we'll come really close to that, because that's just the way that works. So just because you see a funding shortfall and we're 3/4 through the year, don't take it that we're gonna miss that mark, because those appropriations all come in at different times.
Yes, that is correct. Some funding for, the property taxes or the various tax revenues that we get in state funding from those, they don't come in until maybe July and August. And then what I have to do is put that back for the prior years that it was budgeted for, because they do come in at a later time, but they're intended for that year. And some revenues and even expenditures don't happen until the summer months, so May or June. So there can appear that there's a lack of revenue, or some expenditure lines may not have anything that you're surprised that there's a zero balance in. That is because they happen at the end of the fiscal year, or can happen later that gets appropriated back, because that's what the intention was for that year's funding.
That's very important. Jeff, would you like to close with any, or do you have anything else you'd like to discuss?
Just for the residents, if you ever hear me comment about something, it's because something I've read or emails I may get. Just make sure, because this is what I do, I make sure the people who are making these comments live in the city. Because you'll see people who live in other places like Bolivia and other parts of the county who make comments about our city and really don't have any input. And you'll see me make my statements and comments because of some of these things I see and read or get emailed to me. So that's why you'll hear me sometimes react.
And to go off the mayor's point, as we're not a coastal town per se, but we are a pass-through. So everyone coming from 17, Bolivia, go down 87 to get to Southport or Oak Island if they don't go to 11. So there are a lot of eyes as they go through, and you probably do get comments from the vast majority of different municipalities. And with that, you know, luckily 87 is state road, but as you go into the city infrastructure with the pass-through of tourists or people from other municipalities is gonna happen.
Right. So you know, that's a very good point. And something that I think I'd like to touch on just a second before we close. I think everybody's aware now that 133 is under construction and that 87 is serving as the primary detour. There is a plan in place. You know, that kind of detour traffic, just like the detour on our dams detour, is taking a toll on our roadway surfaces. The plan is, and it's already been approved by DOT, is that once the project at 133 is done, is that they're going to repave 87. And so that will be coming. As part of that repaving process, the intersection of 87 and 50 Lakes will have new turn lanes put in both directions. The city continues to lobby for a stoplight there. It's a very busy intersection, and while we here in BSL world think it's justified to have a stoplight there, the powers that be at DOT have said it doesn't warrant one yet. I'm sure one will be coming in the future, because back to your earlier point, construction is booming in Brunswick County. Mm-hmm. It's got to go someplace. We are the fastest growing county in the country, and they're building this community up. I know a lot of people, this county up. I know a lot of people have a problem with growth. Growth is going to happen. We just have to ensure that it's smart growth, and that's one of the things that we're looking at. So I do believe that down the road there will be a stoplight, a traffic signal at the 50 Lakes 87. I can't promise when that'll be. It might not be in my lifetime or your lifetime, but hopefully during Brandon's lifetime, because he's much younger than us.
What are you trying to say? I'm old.
I didn't say that. You and I are close to the same age, but I know Brandon there might be a little younger than us. But you know, I do want to talk about growth just a second. Smart growth. You know, not all good growth is smart growth. Right. And so we have to make sure that we lay the groundwork for this community. As you all know, we started researching and doing some work into expanding sewer throughout our community. And as the city manager, after Tropical Cyclone number 8 came through, one of the things that I recommended to the board is to let's focus on our stormwater issues prior to expanding sewer. Because if we put 9,500 more homes in here without solving our stormwater issues, we're just going to create a mess. Doesn't mean that we can't do them in conjunction with one another, but our primary focus over the next few years is going to be on stormwater and alleviating some of this flooding that's been going on. So unless you guys have anything else to say, I'll close out. I want to thank Brandon Stevens, Finance Director, for your time. I know right now is a very busy time for you. Thank you for your time this morning. Mayor Weinkauf, I know you're always busy. You got a lot of juggling balls up in the air. Thank you for your time. And hopefully the next time that we meet, we'll have some questions out there. Yeah. And so we can answer those. And with that being said, I'm Gordon Hargrove. Thank y'all for taking time to watch this. We appreciate your interest in the city of Bowling Spring Lakes. Have a great day.